Scholomance Academy is here, and that means it's time to review the rogue cards. First up, we have the 2-mana secret Plagiarize. This is a secret at the end of your opponent's turn, you will draw all the cards that they played the previous turn. So this is kind of an interesting secret, as they won't really know whether or not the secret is activated until the end of the turn, which means they might try to kind of poke, play a couple cards, figure out which secret you have, and that can kind of work in your favor. However, I still don't think this is that great. I mean, it might delay your opponent's turn, they might not want to play certain cards, but I'm still not sure it's that powerful. There are some secret synergies we're looking for in this set, but even in spite of those, I think I'm going to give this a 2 across the board. I don't think it's that strong, but people might experiment with it. Next up, we have Self-Sharpening Sword. This is a 3-mana 1/4 weapon that will gain +1 attack after you attack, which means it's actually 3 mana, deal 10 damage, which is quite cost efficient for the mana. And for that reason, because of the other cards in the set, I can kind of see this in an aggressive kind of face huntery style deck, but for rogue, that relies very heavily on Secret Passage and the other Jeeves style 2-drop from the neutral set, just to kind of burn out your opponent with a lot of quick damage. And I think the value that you get from this card and the fact that you can play it with Deadly Poison to make it even more powerful makes me think that you would run this, and I think that deck could even be tier 1 or tier 2, so I'm going to give this card a 4 out of 5 across both categories. Next up, we have Vulpera Toxin Blade. This is a 3-mana 3/3 that will give your weapon +2 attack while it's on the field. Once it's gone, it's not like a battle cry or anything, you won't keep the buff. I think this card is okay, but realistically it's still pretty slow. A 3-mana 3/3 is not amazing stats. Again, you just kill it and you lose the buff. So I don't think this is a very good card. I think it's a 1 across both categories. Moving along, we have Shifty Sophomore. This is a 4-mana 4/4 stealth with Spellburst. Add a combo card to your hand. I think a lot of the combo cards are pretty bad, and I think the stat line is not that great either. I don't think you play this even for the stealth synergies. I'm going to give this a 1 star across both categories. Next up, we have the 5-mana spell Cutting Class. This is a 5-mana draw 2 that costs 1 less for the per attack of your weapon. So if you had a 1 attack weapon, this would cost 4, 2 attack, this would cost 3, etc. This card is only okay. Again, we know that drawing 2 cards is worth about 3 mana. However, this is directly competing with one of the most powerful cards in the entire set, which is Secret Passage, which is a 1-mana draw 5, and we will get to that later. And I think you'd just rather run that, and there isn't that much space. I also think, yes, this could work maybe in Warrior, where they're running Arcanite Reaper in like a really, really aggressive deck, although again, I'm not even sure about that. But in Rogue, I just don't really think the payoff is there. I don't think it's good enough, and I think there are other alternatives that are stronger draw engines. So for that, I'm going to give this a 1 star across both categories. Next up, we have Coerce. This is a 3-mana execute, basically, with combo destroy a minion. So that's destroy a damaged minion originally. I think this card is pretty good in Warrior. I don't really think Rogue is looking for this kind of single target removal. I think they have other options. They could run Sap, they could run Blackjack Stunner. They're just a bunch of better cards that they could choose, and for that reason, I'm going to give it a 1 across both. Or actually, I'm going to give it a 3 in terms of overall card quality, because I think it is a good card, but a 1 in terms of meta relevance. I don't actually think you want to run this. Moving along, we have Brain Freeze. This is a 1-mana spell that will freeze a minion, and if you combo, you'll deal 3 damage to it. So basically a 1-mana Frostbolt. I think this is pretty decent in Rogue. I think Rogue doesn't really have a great way to freeze minions. This is kind of a fairly cheap card. It's easy to activate the combo because it's Rogue. They have a bunch of cheap combo activators as well. Still, I just don't know if you slot this in. The way I see it, the meta will be probably this Galakron Rogue and then this more aggressive kind of burn Rogue that I see with Secret Passage. And I'm not sure this really fits into either of them. So for that reason, I think I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 in terms of overall card quality, but a 2 out of 5 as I think you would try it and eventually cut it. Moving along, we have Potion of Illusion. This is a 4-mana spell that adds 1/1 copies of your minions to your hand, and they will cost 1. This is basically a combo card. I'm not really sure how you would use this in Rogue. I think it has a lot more utility in Mage, and so for that reason, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5 in terms of overall card quality in Rogue, and a 1 out of 5. I don't think people are going to run this, and I don't think it's going to support an archetype that currently exists, but maybe in the future. Next up, we have Jandis Berov. This is a 5-mana 2/1 that will summon 2 random 5-cost minions, and one of them will die after a single hit, but your opponent won't know which one. I think this is a very strong card in Mage, and surprise, surprise, it's a very strong card in Rogue. I think you get a lot of stats for the mana. It can be even more powerful with something like a Death Rattle. Maybe you get like a Wax-a-Dread or something. I think it's just a very, very solid card. and, you know, might even get nerfed. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 in terms of overall power level, and a 4 out of 5 in meta relevance, as I think you would see this in at least one of the rogue decks, if not both. Next up, we have Secret Passage. This is a 1 mana, replace your hand with 5 cards from your deck, swaps back next turn. This card is, in my opinion, the strongest card from the set. This card is insane. If I could give it a 6 out of 5, I would. It is ridiculous. Like, again, number 1. Why is it so strong? Well, to draw 5 cards, that's usually an effect that might be worth like 7 or 8 mana, and we're getting it for 1 mana. Even drawing 2 cards is worth 3 mana, and we know that from Arcane Intellect. So you're getting 5 cards. Now you might say, okay, but you're not actually getting 5 cards because you're replacing your hand. Well, the thing is you're not actually losing the cards when you replace them, so it sort of has like that plot twisty element with it. But I think for an aggro deck, you're often going to end up dumping your entire hand and then just drawing back 5 cards, and you're going to be able to play a bunch of them. And even if you don't play all of them, 1, you don't lose them, so it doesn't matter. And 2, you're still probably going to play like 2 or 3 or 4, which would still be insane card draw for 1 mana. On top of this, it reminds me a lot of Solarium, the 1 mana Warlock spell that would let you just draw 3 cards and then discard the cards you didn't play. And that was seen both in Zoo decks, but also in the Mechathune combo decks. And that was a deck where if you hit your combo pieces, you could lose the game for playing it, and people still played it because it was such efficient draw. And this is that, but without those downsides. So it's just such a powerful card. I cannot give it enough praise. I think this will single-handedly make the aggressive rogue deck possible, because having 2 cards in your deck that draw you 5 cards is just so strong. Like, it makes you able to run crappier quality cards because you can just draw them so quickly. So that's a 5 out of 5 for me. Next up, we have Dr. Krasinov. This is a 5 mana 4/4 that whenever this minion attacks, it'll give your weapon +1/+1/+1, and this has Rush. I think this is basically a better Captain Greenskin in many scenarios, but a worse Captain Greenskin in some scenarios. What I mean by that is this can often just remove a minion. It's basically Greenskin with Rush, which is pretty good, but in some scenarios you actually won't want to attack the minion because it's, say, like an 8/8 on the field, and if you attack it, you're just killing your 5-drop immediately and only getting +1/+1, and then how do you kill it? You have to attack with your weapon, whereas with Greenskin, you could play the thing, get the buff, attack how you want to attack, and then they have to trade into your 5/4 if you want to get rid of it. So I think it's actually worse in some cases. And, you know, Greenskin is already, like, you know, played in some decks. It's kind of like fringe playable. It only works if there's a lot of other pieces to support it. So I don't actually think this card is going to be that good. I don't think you would run this in a Galakron deck, and I'm not really convinced you'd run it in the aggro deck either. So I think I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 in terms of overall card quality. I think it's okay, and then a 2 out of 5 as I think people will experiment with it and then realize it's just not worth running. Moving along, we have Infiltrator Lillian. This is a 4 mana 4/2 stealth with a death rattle that will summon a 4/2 Forsaken Lillian, and that will attack a random enemy minion. So this is a 4 mana 4/2 with a 4/2 body afterwards. I think that has pretty good stealth synergy, and there are a bunch of cards in the rogue set that like stealth. Then it also just deals 4 damage. So for that reason, I think this is a very solid card. I think it would be in the top end of an aggro deck, as it's basically potentially 12 damage from a 4 mana card, which is pretty good. And, you know, you get some body and you get the stealth and everything. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 across both categories. I think you will see this in Rogue. It's not amazing, not like a crazy broken card, but it's very solid. Next up, we have Steel Dancer. This is a 4 mana 4/4 with Battlecry. When you summon this, summon a random minion equal to your attack of your weapon. This card is okay. I think you'd be pretty happy playing this on 4 with a 3 attack weapon to get a random 3-drop. And I don't think that's crazy uncommon, but I think this card is just a bit too conditional for 2 or 3 decks that a rogue is going to have that don't really have the space for this. Like, I don't really think the weapon rogue is going to work out as well as just like a very kind of burn, heavy, aggressive, tempo-focused deck. And I just think, you know, because it's a bit conditional, this isn't going to make the cut. Usually cards that are the strongest are cards that don't need very specific conditions to work. They're just like generally kind of good, and then maybe sometimes they're broken in certain conditions. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 in terms of overall card quality. I think if you really had stuff come together, this would actually be okay. And then I think a 1 out of 5 in terms of meta relevance, sorry. Finally, we have Wand Thief. This is one of those funny cards where in Mage, I don't think it's that great at all, but in Rogue, this is quite solid. It's a 1 mana 1/2 with combo, discover a Mage spell. Now there's a couple things going on here that I think are really strong. One, Mage spells are pretty good in Rogue, as Rogue doesn't have like mass removal. They could get things like Flame Strike, Blizzard, Frost Nova. Those are all pretty solid. You know, it's Discover, so you're usually going to find a pretty solid mage spell in the first place. It's a 1 mana 1/2 with combo, and combo is very easy to activate in Rogue. It kind of reminds me of the Pharaoh Cat, I think it's called, the 1 mana 1/2 that gets you reborn. Obviously that isn't a combo card and you'd still run that, but it's the same kind of like cheap package that gets you value and kind of answers for certain situations, and it's not even that bad to play on one either. So I think this card is one of the things that Rogue is looking for. There's also the whole burglar synergies with you get a card from a different class. I don't think that's going to apply in this upcoming meta, but it is still worth mentioning. So I'm going to give this card a 4 to 5 in terms of overall card quality, and I think even a 4 to 5 in terms of meta relevance, as I think this would be in the aggro Rogue deck that I think will be quite good, maybe tier 2, maybe even tier 1. Okay guys, that's it for the review. Next up we're going to be doing Shaman. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.